So the first question is rate your overall professionalism for this week using the professional expectations descriptions. I would say it says to choose one, but I would say part of me is kind of all of them in their own way. So for like the non-participant, like this past week, I'd say like overall I'm just a really quiet like learner. So maybe I don't like talk out as much in our overall discussion, but I like still participate in like the breakout rooms and stuff. Like I'm good with that. I'm just like, as a learner, I really like take in the information and I don't really choose to like speak out. It's just not who I am. And then the developing student, which I'm still kind of like working on that, and I'm also I'm developing, just getting better and used to being back into school, I guess, especially this past week. I'm still kind of working on being a better student. I'd definitely say like the top two, like I am engaged. I think I have been like professional and everything, like being on time. I feel like I'm responsible. I get everything done. I just, again, like it's a really overwhelming semester. So this past week, I definitely think I've embodied like all of these in different ways. Again, like it's really overwhelming. I'm in 18 credit hours, so I think trying to make sure everything, just making sure I'm still like a professional student and get everything done is definitely what I'm working on. So I'd say I'm probably more on the developing to responsible student level this past week anyway. To provide at least 3 specific examples of personal ratings. So how many assignments have you completed to the best of your abilities and submitted on time that were due in weeks 1, 2, and 3? So I've completed all of the assignments. I always try to, make sure I'm completing them to the best of my ability. I don't try to just like rush through it. That's why sometimes it does take me a while, because I really like to think about it and ponder. And then they've all been on time from what I'm thinking. I don't think I've ever returned in anything late for this class that I can think of. I think I've done very well with that. How many of the reading reflections have you given your best effort to read, comprehend, and discuss prior to class? I've definitely really worked on making sure I do get these readings done. I reflect on them. I make sure I read and comprehend them. I think sometimes when it comes to reading, it's harder for me to comprehend and then try to express myself to other people. That's why I think it might take me a little bit longer, and sometimes I might not know the information as well as maybe I should, just because some things when I'm reading it kind of gets kind of confusing, I guess, in my mind. I definitely give the best effort, but I definitely also, this past week I probably could have done better at making sure I truly read through these in the past week before coming to class. Again, like coming off a Labor Day weekend last week was really bad. Having like things due on that Monday night, I think it kind of got a little overwhelming for me, and so it was like making sure I had everything read before coming to class Tuesday was like a lot. But again, I try to always give my best effort and try to get everything done to like my best effort and everything. So you pick the third piece of evidence that describes your professionalism. So for 4, select one quote or big idea from each of the 4 reading reflections have the most impact on you as a future math teacher. So the first one is from Never Saying Anything a Kid Can Say. So basically it gave the definition of like a good teacher and how it changed from one explains things so well that students understand to one who gets students to explain things so well that they can be understood. And I think that's so important as teachers to get to that point where students are able to explain it themselves or do it themselves to where they are understood and basically could teach it themselves to where people understand them, because that's when we know that they're learning. Because honestly, when we think we explain things so well that students understand, we don't always know if students understand. We might think they do, but we don't truly know until, versus when we get students to explain themselves in a way that others understand them, we know that we've been doing it right. And then number 2 was, I had the equity and access passage, and basically like a little excerpt from it was, equity does not mean that every student should receive identical instruction. Instead, it demands that reasonable and appropriate accommodations be made as needed to promote access and attainment for all students. And I think that's really important to understand as teachers, that we know that not all students need that same instruction. We need to make those accommodations. We need to adapt to all students and provide them what they need, versus not just handing one thing out for all of them and expecting them to all have the same outcome. Basically, we can't expect that as a teacher. And I guess I guess that's the next thing. But then number 3, the number sense. What I took from that is all the different terms. So I had the, I believe the term I chose was the compensation. Yes. So that's basically like when you see a number, you're seeing it as parts. So when you're adding a number, you know this plus this makes that, but then you're able to add or subtract the other numbers in order to understand that these also make that whole number. And realizing, I remember when I realized that as a child, but not knowing that's the name and all these different terms have these different things, and it really makes sense. And then number 4, so kind of the big idea I took from that was when it was talking about fluency. And honestly, when you think of fluency, it's often correlated with reading. You don't think about it as much as with math. But basically, it talked about how students can be fluent when they're able to use multiple strategies, and that's really important when their students are able to use these different methods and strategies to find that same outcome in different ways. That's where we want students to be, especially in math. So it's great when students can be fluent. So then going in, the 2 questions you still have about these ideas and concepts. So the first one kind of goes with the number sense, and it's how can I get better at understanding and making sure I have good number sense as a future teacher. And I know I kind of touched base on that in class, and I asked that, but I know the whole computer games, or the phone games and stuff that would definitely help for sure. I guess I just get nervous that how do I expect my students to be good at it when maybe I need to refresh myself or make sure I know what exactly is happening. And then the other question kind of goes back to the access and equity question. Yes, and that was basically how can we as teachers make sure this happens in our classrooms, making sure we don't just give this identical instruction. I feel when I'm that day-to-day instruction, it just might become a habit to just give everyone the same thing. How can I make sure that I am meeting the needs of every student and not just applying everything that we do in the classroom to everyone? Because that's my biggest fear, is I want to make sure every student's need is being met, but how can I do this? And I know I just want to provide that appropriate instruction for every student in our classrooms, and I just kind of want more tips or more understanding of how can I make sure I make sure this is met in my classroom. So one way these ideas or concepts will impact you as a future math teacher, definitely understanding these terms will help me a lot. Knowing that in math, especially meeting the needs of all the students and not of them individually and not the overall class. I think all of these I can really take into the classroom and become a better teacher by understanding these concepts and understanding how to use them, and then just be the best teacher I can be for these students, make sure they understand the information and not me thinking, oh, since I explained it to them, I think they get it, versus actually figuring out if the students know it. So yes, these are the questions that I've answered and just what I've kind of reflected on so far. Thanks.